Good evening, Bahamas. Coming up tonight on our news.
Island Luck set to let go of hundreds just ahead of government sliding scale tax for the web shop industry.
Prime Minister speaking out on those MPs he fired. Found out what he had to say. Straight ahead.
A recent stabbing at Her Majesty's prison could lead to more investigations.
Our news is brought to you by Alive.
Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us. I'm Christina Dragovich. Topping news tonight, Island Luck, the biggest gaming operator in the industry, is preparing to let go over 300 of its staff members. This comes as gaming operators have repeatedly called for government to reconsider its plans to introduce a sliding scale tax for the industry. Kyle Joaquin tells us more.
Gaming giant Island Luck dropping the bombshell today, notifying the government and its employees that a staff reduction is on the way.
I need my job.
Just a week after gaming house operators released this ad lobbying for government to reconsider a massive fee hike.
I need my job.
It turns out hundreds of Island Luck employees could be out of a job within the next few weeks. In a letter to the gaming board, Island Luck said, "Based on our current business model, operating infrastructure, and operating cost structure, this proposed new tax structure will increase our liability by almost 200%, and it will result in the government of the Bahamas, through taxation, claiming close to 85% of our earnings before taxes." The letter continues, "We hereby formally notify you of our intent to reduce our staff count by up to 350 persons starting within the next 30 days. The letter comes 2 days after Assurewind announced plans to shut down 11 locations this month, putting 50 gaming employees out of work. And then on Wednesday, Labor Minister Dion Folks made this plea for web shop operators to hold off on job cuts.
I would like to encourage all of the web shops, all of the houses, not to do anything prematurely, to see how the tax actually affect them before making any decisions."
But his plea may be too little, too late. In a memo to staff dated June 21st, Island Luck Human Resources Manager Jeanette Ramming informed employees that their performance is now under review. It reads, "The Human Resources Department, in conjunction with the district managers, will be conducting performance assessment exercises for all staff members over the next 21 days. It is important to note that this performance assessment exercise will not serve as a determinative factor with respect to any downsizing decisions, but will be a factor in the event of store closures and redundancies." Ramming warned of possible job cuts early this month in an interview with our news.
Obviously, it is not our intended purpose for there to be any potential job losses. But unfortunately, if things continue on the impeded trend that it's on now, we might have to look at the possibility of downsizing.
We reached out to Gaming Board Chairman Kenyatta Gibson, Tourism Minister Dionisio de Aguilar, as well as Labor Minister Dion Folks for comment. However, our calls were not answered or returned. We also contacted Labor Director John Pinder, who said he received no notice of planned terminations by gaming houses.
I really need my job.
For our news, I'm Kyle Joaquin.
Well, the government will have an amended heads of agreement for the controversial Oban Energy's deal in a matter of weeks, according to Minister of Labor Dion Folks, who co-chairs the Cabinet Subcommittee and Technical Advisory Group to examine the controversial project. Jasmine Brown has that.
In a few weeks, we will have an amended heads of agreement for Oban that we believe will be acceptable to the Bahamian people at large, but more importantly, acceptable to Grand Bahamians and persons living in Grand Bahama.
The Labor Minister made the revelation during his contribution to the budget debate in the Senate. Folks, who serves as co-chair of the Cabinet Subcommittee and a Technical Advisory Group charged with examining the Oban deal, says they have been tasked with 3 objectives.
To improve the environmental terms in the agreement, to ensure better environmental protection to East Grand Bahama and to Grand Bahama generally. Number 2, to improve the economic terms in the condition that will be more beneficial to the Bahamian people, but particularly to Grand Bahamians and Bahamians living in East Grand Bahama. And number 3, to revise some of what we consider to be restrictive legal provisions in the heads of agreement.
Folks says so far the principals of Oban have been on board with these objectives. The government signed an agreement with Oban Energies for the $5.5 billion oil refinery and storage facility for East Grand Bahama on February 10th. However, the public was not notified at the time. The Minutes administration then held a so-called ceremonial signing on February 19th with Oban Energies non-executive chairman Peter Krieger, who signed someone else's name on the document. Another point of contention was the failure to complete an environmental impact assessment before inking the Oban deal. In March, Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis admitted that his government had made a series of missteps regarding the deal.
We have been meeting on a continuous basis over the last 3 or 4 months, made many trips to Grand Bahama and met with many persons in Grand Bahama, including professionals who are in the industry, former retired from Statoil and from Borco, now Buckeye. And we are relying very heavily on the advice of Bahamian professionals.
Folks says when all is said and done, the agreement will be more palatable to Bahamians.
Now, senators are expected to continue debating the 2018-2019 fiscal budget on Monday. Reporting from Parliament Square for our news, I'm Jasmine Brown.
And fired Hotel Corporation Chairman Frederick McAlpine firing back at Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis, who told reporters that his obligations under the Westminster system of governance forced him to fire 3 MPs who voted against the VAT bill. McAlpine is now questioning what happened to that obligation when Minnis misled Parliament on the real date the Oban Heads of Agreement was signed. Here's Jared Higgs.
The Westminster system should be followed for all, not just when it's convenient to be used.
Pine Ridge MP Frederick McAlpine is accusing Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis of selectively applying the rules of the Westminster system when it's convenient for him. Speaking to reporters in Grand Bahama following the opening of the Bahamas Blockchain and Cryptocurrency Conference, Minnis defended his decision to fire Parliamentary Secretaries Travis Robinson and Vaughan Miller, as well as McAlpine, who was chairman of the Hotel Corporation. Minnis stated that the country has a parliamentary procedure that he must adhere to and respect, and ensure the parliamentary procedure lives on and is honoured and respected thoroughly. He added that we are a democratic society, we practice Westminster system parliamentary procedure, and I have certain obligations and I will ensure that I adhere to my obligations. McAlpine acknowledged that the Prime Minister can do what he wants, but insists that he should be more impartial.
Once we are powerful, we must also be merciful. And so again, I'm saying, yes, we should follow the Westminster system. The Prime Minister is at the right. We all serve at his pleasure. But if we're going to follow the Westminster system, it cannot just be applied conveniently when we're not happy with the results we want.
Observers have noted that House Speaker Halson Moultrie escaped rebuke from his fellow F&M MPs, including Minnis, when he launched personal attacks against members of the opposition from the Speaker's chair. Minister of Education Jeffrey Lloyd also went unpunished when he admitted that government did not follow the law in its handling of the controversial Oban deal. The Prime Minister himself came under fire from Deputy Leader of the PLP Chester Cooper, who accused him of misleading the House. On February 14th, Minnis told Parliament the government would sign the Oban Heads of Agreement on February 19th, knowing full well the document had already been signed on February 10th.
If a person misleads Parliament, whatever capacity, then according to the Westminster, they should resign. If a person is caught up in a situation, again, they should resign. If a person votes against a bill in the upper house that is contrary to the government, and you allow them to continue to sit and not resign, people begin to have questions. And so you can't cherry pick when we decide we're going to say, oh, we're the Westminster, and then on other occasions we do as we wish.
Now, MP for Golden Isles Vaughan Miller also spoke out against the Westminster system, calling it a dictatorship in disguise. He says the Prime Minister selectively chose when to follow those rules.
I accept the consequences for my decision. However, all I want is just be fair, just be consistent, the same way you treated us. I'm sure there are issues that's going to come in the future, maybe in the very near future. Just be consistent.
Minnis fired the 3 men just hours after they voted against the bill that will see VAT increase to 12% on July 1st. Reporting for Our News, I'm Jared Higgs.
We March activist turned government-appointed Senator Renard Henfield throwing his full support behind the Minnis administration's budget, which will see a rise in VAT to 12% and a steep tax hike for gaming operators. Henfield, who once said he would never support a political party and that Bahamians deserve to do more than just pay bills and cry, said in the Senate today those who oppose the new budget are playing politics.
I wish to publicly express my support for increasing the taxes on lottery businesses that have been pillaging the over-the-hill communities. So, Madam President, this budget is about responsible governance. This is right budgeting. This is fiscal responsibility. Nothing is being hid from the Bahamian people to make the government of the day look good.
In other news, an investigation has been launched following a recent stabbing at the Bahamas Department of Corrections. The National Security Minister warning that officers found assisting inmates with accessing weapons and other contraband will be dealt with. Jillian Gray has the details.
Amid reports of the alleged stabbing of an inmate at the Bahamas Department of Corrections, National Security Minister Marvin Dames would not give details of the incident, only telling reporters he was aware of a stabbing at the Foxhill facility.
Received some information of the stabbing. I don't know with what or who, but obviously the matter is under control and under investigation. I'm aware of that much. Yeah.
He says authorities are now investigating where the weapon came from.
This is an ongoing issue at correctional institutions around the world. Unfortunately, these inmates are being supported by men and women in uniform, albeit a minority, but that is the fact. And wherever we find them, we'll expose them, and they will face the full brunt of the law.
Members of a joint task force raided the prison in April and found homemade shanks, cell phones, marijuana, and other contraband. Dame said they are investigating officers and have even made some arrests.
Some of them are currently before the courts. Some of them are no longer in the institution.
The National Security Minister said he expects the problem of corruption to continue, but they are more than equipped and ready to handle it.
You recruit people. Many of them, the vast majority, are committed to serving their country. And then there is a small minority who look at it as an opportunity, right, to fill their pockets.
Earlier this year, Transparency International's Global Corruption Barometer survey revealed that 1 in 10 Bahamians had paid a bribe to an officer. Dame said all agencies will be reviewed to ensure that officers are held to the highest standards. The National Security Minister added that regular raids will continue at the Bahamas Department of Corrections. Now again, the National Security Minister said they are committed to ensuring that all law enforcement agencies are held to the highest standards. Reporting for Our News, I'm Jillian Gray.
Still to come on Our News, Shantytown residents to be served with eviction letters. The details after this break.